Discussion 1. The transformative role of HR and learning and development leaders in shaping a digital workplace for enhanced agility and resilience. Our moderator, give it up for Mr. Nikhil Chadha, advisor, edForce. Our fellow panelist, Mr. Pawan and Lalwani, Associate Director, Learning and Development Emerging Markets, Europe and ANZ Cipla. With that, Ms. Preeti Bose, Head Leadership and Talent Development, Cyril Amarchand Mangaldas. Ms. Anvesha Singh, Vice President, Talent Management, Vodafone India Limited. Mr. Mukesh Kataria, Head of Learning and Development, QualityKiosk Technologies Pvt Limited. Mr. Atul Mathur, EVP HR, Head Learning and Development, Aditya Birla Capital. Ms. Dhanashri Kulkarni, India Head, Learning and Development and Talent Management, Technip Energies.
It reminds me of something I'm very fond of, and that is cheese. Because the topic reminds me that the role of HR and L&D leaders, in my understanding, is like the slice of cheese in a sandwich. On one side, you have to make sure that the employees say, okay, you're adding value. And on the other, the business is like, let me do business and you help me do it better. And you kind of caught in between that. So the way I reconciled it was that as HR and L&D leaders, we hold the space, and the space is the organization together. And it's the organization that's evolving. And as HR and L&D leaders, we have to say, how do we enable that space? And that's really where our topic right now comes up to, that as the digital workplace requires more enhanced agility, more resilience by the people and the system, what is the transformative role that HR and L&D leaders can play to enable this space? It's an ongoing topic, it's an ongoing requirement. The context and this nuances changes. So it's an evergreen topic, therefore. Now, I'm going to start off with the first question. That's for you, Mukesh. Like I just said that, organizational agility is really becoming a very key element, and the workplace context is more digital, it's more learning and adaptability. So what key initiatives can HR and L&D leaders drive to make this happen?
Thank you, and good afternoon, everybody. I think it's no rocket science, and we have heard it from our previous speakers, that this is going to be all skill-based. And the skill shelf life is shrinking day by day. If continuous learning and agility is not what we as L&D and HR people bring on the table, then possibly we will be out of the game. So it's no longer a niche thing. Agility and continuous learning is a mandate, if you were to ask me. Having said that, there are two ways in which HR, L&D can bring these initiatives to the organization. One is the very easy way, and I'll speak the easier way first. So there are a lot of digital learning platforms which provide continuous learning and also agility for different learners to learn at their own pace, own time, anytime, anywhere. All those agility factors are built in. And there's plethora of such content providers. Not favoring anybody, but there's Coursera, there is Udemy, there is Pluralsight, and you expose that to the employees and the easier part is done. How many of us are in the space where we provide these learning objects to the organization and then keep dropping mail saying the flavor of the week is, let's say, DevOps, the flavor of the month is presentation skills, communication skills, which is very easy part of the job that L&D and HR can do. Do you agree with me? What is difficult part, and I'll elaborate more on that, and I'm going through it, and I'll share personal experiences, the initiative which is currently running in the organization. So the difficult part is, how do we tie this up with the organization for its relevance, business objectives, and able to get an ROI out of it. Full stack, I think it's the most commonly used term, and everybody has their own definition of full stack. The business demand for full stack is very high and the supply is quite less. And if L&D and HR can put an act together and bring this to the organization in the definition which the organization benefits, I think then we are speaking what we need to bring on the table, a continuous learning with agility. It's like a Lego block. Different people have different set of skills. To become a full stack, an employee A is 2 steps behind and an employee B is 6 steps behind. So that's the agility we need to map. And how is it that L&D and HR can bring those Lego blocks and say, okay, you take part 1, you take part 2, you take 3 parts and complete your full stack journey. So this initiative in my organization at QualityKiosk is called as QGenier. It's a big exercise we had to do. The heart of it is how do we involve business to participate in co-curating the learning journey. To add to it, how is it that HR can support in enabling a quick promotion, a quick incentive. So there's something called as a special skills allowance. So if you are participating in QGenier and you qualify it by completing the learning journey, you get a special skills allowance. How many people in my organization wanted to participate in this initiative voluntarily? So we kept it open to the organization. Any guesses of what's the participation appetite for such an initiative which is business aligned and gives a reward to the employee? 50%, 60%, 70%, it's as high as 80%. So people wrote an entrance exam to qualify for this. So this is actually hitting on the ground. This is a running initiative. 80% of people voluntarily want to participate in learning, and this is not learning outside the job. This is learning in the flow of work. So you don't have to leave the job and come to a class and attend it. You have to coexist with your job and keep learning. So I can elaborate many more such initiatives, but I think we'll hear more things around the table. If we get time, possibly I'll share one more initiative called as Q-Tank. So it's more like Shark Tank, but how is innovation, continuous contribution from the grassroots to create innovative solutions? So that's from my side, but happy to elaborate more as the time permits. Thank you.
Thank you. So I really took away this element of the Lego blocks element. But before we build on it, anyone else on the panel wants to add to this? If not, then we'll move to the Lego blocks piece. Now, as we look at the digital workforce, a huge element of the Lego blocks is going to be leveraging technology and data together. So, Dhanashri, the question is, what can HR L&D leaders do to first identify these skills using data and then say, how do we build it for the org?
Sure. Since you mentioned digital workforce, many of us use these words as synonyms: digitization, digitalization, digital transformation. Do you think these words mean the same? Yes or no? No. So, yep, digitization is just about putting the analog data into the digital format, whereas digitalization is about using that digitized data to set up new processes, make the system more efficient. And digital transformation is about aligning these processes, the digitalized processes, with the goals of the organization, with the development of the employees. And when you mentioned a digitalized workforce or a digitally transformed workforce, we are talking about employees who are sound when it comes to the digital skills, and they are also sound in terms of the functional skills or the business skills, because that alignment is very necessary. Now, as just Mukesh said, that the shelf life of skills is reducing, and hence the competency framework, which typically gets updated every few years, does not really work in this kind of digitally transformed workforce. Similarly, the training need identification that I think most of us do as a yearly activity. Sometimes we do it on a catalog-based initiative or sometimes as a consultative approach. It always results into a very generic learning solution for the organization. And hence, at Technip Energies, in 2023, we launched an initiative which is called as the Mid-Year Development Review. Please note, it's not performance review. It's a mid-year development review where the discussion between the manager and the employee only happens on the developmental goals. What is it that the employee should focus on for the next year to meet the business goals? Now we use technology here. We have a very good HRMS tool which documents this data. And at Learning and Development team, we use data analytics to identify what's the trend. What is it that people are really good at? Because when we are talking about development review, we are not just talking about development. We are also talking about what are the strengths of the organization. So we identify those trends. This is something that our organization is really good at. This is something that we need to focus on. And something similar to this, Anvesha and I were discussing, and we were like, how do we really do this for 2,000 plus employees? If I have the learning needs of 2,000 employees with me, how am I supposed to design my learning initiatives? And the answer to it is data analytics, Power BI, which helps us create those clusters. And then the entire learning plan for the year is designed on those clusters. So to summarize, I would say that we do use technology, we use data analytics, but it's very important for us that the input comes from business. And then we get the kind of buy-in that Mukesh just mentioned. 80% of the people are willingly interested in it. And most importantly, they find some value in those conversations with their managers, because throughout the year they see, oh, I told my manager that this is what I want to learn, or my manager mentioned that this is a skill you need to work on. And in that next 12 months, I got a learning opportunity related to that skill. Right? So that's how we do it at Technip Energies, Nikhil.
Thank you. And I am seeing a emerging wisdom line coming here from what what was spoken by Mukesh first, in the sense of combine the context of the org and help the employee understand that in this context, what's in it for me. And that's the reward element. And Dhanashri, what you brought in, that we're moving away from generics and using data to identify smartly what can answer both these questions. But that's also, you brought up a very interesting element of how do you now involve the business into it. And Pawan, that brings me to you saying, how do HR and L&D leaders now have a conversation where the business leader has to also understand what is the new context and then help in workforce skill development?
Yeah. So thank you, Nikhil. If you see on an organization-wide, if the business wants is that, okay, we want to grow as a business, as the company is saying that we want to grow as a business. Now, what every function has to do is they have to collaborate. They have to understand what exactly, now for a growth purpose, HR and recruitment, they may want to start hiring more faster. They may want to start focusing on their onboarding. How quickly can I onboard my people? How can I focus on my learning and development team, where the team is continuously learning, but the span is getting shorter, so that the growth is happening at their org-wise. So that is something that we need to focus on. Now, what was happening is, in my previous organization, again, this is a little off track, but then yes, I wanted to talk about is, what happened was, as soon as a person was hired, so I was working with a BPO, and I'm sure a lot of you will be able to collaborate with that. As soon as a person was hired, they would go through a series of training, like they go through language training, they go through American accent training, they go through product training, sales training, and so on. So for at least 6 to 8 weeks, they go through training. Now what happened was, during the first week or the second week of training, a lot of attrition was happening. Now Recruitment at the same time said that we are not taking the hit. Training said that this person just recently came. We are not taking the hit. And operations, of course, will not take the hit because they have not even hit the operations team. So who is going to be responsible for that? So then we got a process in place where we told, okay, if a person is being hired from 0 to 30 days, this person leaves will be falling into HR and recruitment. If a person is from 30 to 90 days, it falls into training. And after 90 days, it goes into the operations. So what happens is, basically what I'm trying to convey is, a lot of these collaboration actually helps to identify what is the gap and to address those gaps very easily. Yeah, that's it.
So what I'm really hearing is that we have to plug in the gaps and see where the ball gets dropped. And for this, it's important to bring in synergy and agreement at the top. So Preeti, I'm going to use this to come to you. The world is changing very fast. Organizations want to become future ready, and who are the ones who are going to take it there? Has to be the leaders who are creating this future ready organization. So what can HR and L&D do to really foster this?
I think we've all been building towards that in the initial conversations also that I saw since morning. I think what's really important, Nikhil, is to understand the relationship, the complex relationship between humans and machine, right? And I see a lot of people see AI separately, human leadership very differently. What I'm thinking is if we can have the maturity to first understand, then appreciate, and then build on this relationship of humans and machines, which is where the future lies. Otherwise, we'll always have people who are scared of AI coming in, data-driven technology. They'll be scared of what's coming their way. They're scared of losing the jobs to machines, right? But I think there are very, very distinct elements that humans can do and machines can do. I can't force passion, fire, integrity, ethics. Right? These are very human emotions. You can't expect a machine probably to do this. Right? There's no way a machine can replicate these. There are a lot of things machine bring in. There's analytics, there's understanding, there's objectivity, right? There are application, there's adaptive leadership there that can happen through AI, for example, or through machines that cannot happen just by human understanding. You need some kind of segmentation of data coming in there. As a leader, you need to provide the vision, right? And before I get there, I think the digital leadership is what we call, right? The understanding of how the organization will leverage this digital transformation that everybody in the world is talking about, as if we didn't know how to run our businesses before this. So I completely get it. Change is coming. It's fine. If something can make my business, people, processes far more efficient, quick, agile, why not? Right? After all, we are not in service of machines. Machines are in service of us. And that's a distinct differentiation we all have to understand. L&D, HR, leadership, I think we all cogs of the same wheel. I do not differentiate too much among them. Just that we are all responsible for running different segments of the business. Right? A leader will provide the vision. A leader will help people understand the why of it. A leader will help understand, lay the path, for example. Show the future 4 years, 5 years, 10 years down the line. HR will help get the processes in place. For example, change management or a robust change plan is extremely critical when any such transformation is happening, right? We have to understand that people will resist change. Even if I ask Pawan to shift chairs right now, his first question in his mind will be, why? Right? But we just assume that everybody is happy with change coming in. Trust me, most people are not, without even understanding why we are being asked to change, right? L&D, of course, can help people gain those skills in a manner which is far more engaging. And just, I want to build on Dhanashri's point is, there's a training calendar, there's a training roster, and there is no needs analysis that happen which is individual based. It's group based. Oh, you are in this profile, you might benefit from this one, right? Or you just assign to a program without really understanding if I am at a point A and my point A and everybody else's point A is different, I may not need to be part of that program. L&D needs to be far more intelligent and efficient in understanding and what I call true data. So take long-term performance data, take potential feedback, right? Understand where the person's gap are. Don't just speak to the manager, speak to the person. Because a lot of times managers don't have those in-depth conversations with the team members. And performance management is about past performance, not future. It's not about what I truly want. It's what the organization wants me to do most of the times, right? So L&D needs to integrate all of these data points and then build learning programs which is not just collective, but individual path as well, like we have career paths. I need to have a learning path that is for me, Preeti. Of course, I'm part of group sessions and I'm part of group learning. All that is fine, right? But my potential, my aspirations, vis-a-vis in line with the organization, it has to be unique and different. And a lot of times we don't build on this uniqueness, which is why people become disenchanted. They're not in the training sessions. They're like, why do I bother, right? So I think just bringing it together, leadership, HR, L&D, they all need to work together, right? And ensure that everybody's speaking the same language. Thank you.
Thank you. And I love the element where you said it is how leaders and humans are going to leverage technology. However, and I'm going to pass the same question to Anvesha, but for another reason. Preeti's context comes from an industry which was historically more human skill, nuance and wisdom driven, and technology is coming in. So it's a way the mix happens. You're on the other side of the fence, where the business is technology and then there are people. So how would you respond to the same question?
So good afternoon everybody. Great to be part of such an illustrious panel. It's a tricky one, Nikhil. Because when you look at telecom as an industry, it touches lives of everybody, I think, who's sitting in this room and your loved ones, without exception. So yes, technology and the transformation and disruption that technology brings in is a huge part of the industry and the nature of the industry itself. But I think when we look at, really building leaders and yielding impact from leaders, I think it's very human values that we focus on. And, it is something as basic as how do you really have respectful environment and a very trust-based relationships between managers and their teams. Because honestly, if I look at technology, and there's so much that is said about the disruption that technology brings in, but ideally, the way I look at it is that it brings in platforms where communication patterns are changing, right? The ideal that, in a critical employee touch point that I would like to have is an in-person conversation, right? Which leads to those moments of discovery or aha moments in an employee's, career trajectory or in the overall space of the organization, right? And I think when we look at building our leadership pipelines or really nurturing and building our leadership, it's really about investing in those human values. So how do I build more emotionally competent leaders who are also digitally dexterous, right? So can I have a great conversation on a Gmeet platform, which is going to be about that person being a top talent and maybe you as a leader delivering a very critical conversation on what is that overall top talent proposition that the company is offering to the person. So it's a very, very big moment in the employee's life, I'd say. Yeah, but it's happening on a digital platform. I no longer have that luxury of reading body language or really seeing how the message is landing with the employee. Yeah, but the way we want to kind of develop our leaders is, can we still look at emotional intelligence? Can we still look at building executive presence or spatial awareness? Right, where you are able to gauge even over a digital platform how well your message is landing. What is it that you should be saying? How many touch points should you be having? Those are the things that we focus on in the talent and capability teams at companies like Vodafone Idea. Because you're absolutely right. Today, the big conversation which is happening in companies like this is not that you have to become a great telco. It's actually the transition from a telco to a techco. Right? So today, my competition is no longer a Airtel or just a Jio. It is also a Google, right? Which is building eSIM capabilities in the phones that they're launching. And maybe a couple of years from now, you guys might not even need to, license with a telco. It could be just buying a Google phone and operating it with a Starlink Wi-Fi and having an eSIM. So there is absolutely no touch point of a telco. That is also a possibility in the next couple of years. Yeah. But having said that, when we look at talent and capability development in companies like this, we really focus on very, very human and very humanistic kind of values, because I think machines can bring in efficiencies. They can give you access and reach, yeah, as do telcos. But the basic human emotion that leaders need to evoke for employees to feel to feel happy or to feel fulfilled and have a meaningful work life. I think those are really the skills that we focus on. It's not so much technology and how do leaders deal with technology, because that I think intrinsically is a part and parcel of our lives already.
I'd like to build on what she said. So a lot of organizations, performance management is about a check-in-the-box process where a manager will sit and decide what you've done without really knowing completely everything that you have, because you'll take hours on a weekend probably to fill your self-appraisal form. Managers will, before the meeting, and not all, I worked with some fantastic managers, I've learned quite a lot with them, especially in Mondelez and some of my previous organizations as well, where managers will be far more prepared than I am. Okay, but most managers I've seen is just before the meeting, they'll take a print or ask their EAs or SECs to get a print and brief in while the person is walking, right? Then they'll ask you what have you done well, what could have been different, but in their mind, the rating is already fixed because they need a bell curve to fix it, right? There is not even a conversation about your growth, your future aspirations, because performance is all about past performance, right? And the conversation is about the year gone by. But I think there's a huge miss that leaders, they don't leverage this opportunity. This conversation is what from here. The conversation is all about what you've done well in the last year, but I think you can also leverage about future, which is feedback versus feed forward, right? What can you do differently to be better in your role, or what is the map that I see for you? What do you want to do? For example, Nikhil, right? And it's really dismal to see managers and leaders waste such a beautiful conversation opportunity where employees walk in with great expectations, but there's nothing but great disappointment for at least 80% of the employees, right? And you can use this conversation to actually ask the person, where do you want to go from now? Because except in Mondelez, where we had two different conversations for performance and one for development. So we had a performance conversation towards the end of the year, and after a month or two, we would have a development conversation. I haven't seen this philosophy anywhere else in the industry. I've been working for 27, 28 years now. And we talk about tech, we talk about AI, we talk about multiple things as if we're going to change the world, but we need to fix the foundation first, right? An employee works in an environment, it is a contract. I'll do my job, you also take care of me, help me grow in my career, in my life, right? Which is why people change jobs, because they're looking for something different, something new. And this is something that leaders, managers, they have to fix as foundation for the company culture, Nikhil. Because it is all great to talk about tech and AI, but I know a lot of organizations don't even have HRMS in place. And they are the ones having technology sessions. That's what I wanted to communicate.
So I'm just adding on to what Preeti said, just one line. So my current manager, he says, what got you here will not take you there. So that's why it is very important. And he tells me every year that whatever your KRAs are, 50% of the KRAs you can keep same as last year, and 50% should be completely new one, so that you keep learning every time. And because of those 50% of KRAs will be new, you will be learning by yourself. You will be tend to do that because it's your salary at the end of the day. It's your promotion at the end of the day. So yeah, thank you.
Okay, so what I'm really loving hearing is that you mentioned that it's about how technology is going to be used by people. So that's a huge element. So as a core magic sauce, what I'm understanding is that the attention to be given to the human abilities, conversations, that actually becomes even more prominent than the whole buzz around technology around it. So that's I would say that's very life affirming if I look at it. But there's a question I want to ask the audience. As I was hearing this, I realized, so in our line of work, the times you helping a CEO, C-suite, and you also go down the line and help first-time managers. There is one statement which we expect all of them to look at, and can you beat it? They all struggle with it. So as part of the core foundation of being a leader, you have to start by caring. And to do that, quite often I would expect leaders and managers to say, spend 30 minutes with someone who reports to you directly every week. Have a conversation with them, with a caveat. You cannot talk about work. And you cannot speak, ideally, the senior you go, I won't say more than 30% of the time. And you're not to make statements, you have to only ask questions. And they all come back and say, I do not know how to have a conversation like that. And really what we're trying to say is, can you be present to the person who is trusting that you're going to care for them, not yesterday, but tomorrow, to what Pawan said, and help them get clarity and even genuinely listen, where do you want to go? And how do you have that human caring conversation is what most leaders and managers totally draw a blank at. And looks like that's a huge skill to be built.
Nikhil, if I could just add, because I remember that I'm also part of the panel here. So I think I also need to contribute to the discussion here. Frankly, everything has been said, so I can just say digitally cut paste. But you took up this point of caring. Now, caring is not just being nice to a person. Caring is not just spending time. Of course, you have to spend time. But as HR and L&D professionals, I think caring also is that how do we actually give them that exposure that their capability is built. So for example, in my organization, we are looking at both here and now as well as future fit, because you have to earn your daily bread and you also have to be ready for the times that are coming in, which are quite volatile, right? And as has been spoken about most of my panelists over here, so we definitely are looking at from a digital learning perspective, but if you go back to the age-old 70-20-10 principle, right, people pick up most of the learnings 70%. And I think as it has been mentioned, by I think probably Mukesh and some other panelists also over here, what we are doing is that any strategic project that we are starting off with, there is a cross-functional team. And that cross-functional team definitely has a HR or a L&D person in that. So that it is not that something has been conceptualized and then it's handed over that now go and execute it, right? You are there and you are able to co-create from the beginning, right? Which I think makes a lot of difference, because even for HR and learning, they can see the bigger picture, and everybody also understands the interdependence which is there between different functions in order to make that piece come alive and successful. So that is something that we are focusing on big time. Secondly, they say that charity begins at home, right? And therefore what we have done as a first step, of course, a lot of things have to happen side by side, but in our case also our HR folks and our training folks, we are training them on HR analytics. So that, because there's so much of data that you're sitting on and so many decisions that you take, it's important for them to understand and be able to help the line managers or the hierarchy in order to look at developing the people in the right fashion. So it's not just looking at some reports and looking at some performance reports, and a lot of times performance, as we know, the difference between performance and potential. Potential is the horsepower that can take you up. And that's where these interventions are really helping, right? The other thing which also that we are doing is, besides, first increasing the capability of our HR training folks, is that the line one, or what we refer to as L1 manager, is the pivotal point. A lot of times people leave organizations because they're not very happy with the supervisors, the way they're being treated, or they're looking up for some guidance and they're not getting it. So we're also investing enough and more time in terms of managerial effectiveness. And there, as one of the key elements, we're also looking at digital dexterity, because we are moving towards that. And in the end, I would also like to say, which is my favorite line, that the world of digital is a world of and, not or. And therefore, both will exist. So it'll be human beings and the digital technology.
And if I can add that, this is not the last statement for you, because I do have another question I want you to lean in on. See, we've so far been talking about change happening and how are we adapting to it. But change, and more importantly, resistance to change, is a very emotional dimension to a human being. And what can HR really do by leveraging technology to help reduce this resistance? Are there some thoughts around that?
That's a very good question, and I don't think there's one simple answer for this, because all of us are trying different things. I'll give a very small example. In one of our businesses, so I'm from Aditya Birla Capital, which is the financial services division of Aditya Birla Group. In one of our, in our life insurance business, for example, which works with a lot of prestigious banks, as their, the distribution mode. There is a need, because there are so many branches and you need to train people all across the country. So there is a need to, always there's this thing that, hire more people, hire more trainers, hire more trainers. And I've been saying that we're not a training organization. We're a financial services company, right? And we need to think digitally. So something that we have created and launched successfully last year, and this year we're ramping it up, is something called AI-based role plays, which is a self-paced skilling tool. Now, initially there was a lot of resistance because people felt that, no, we need a trainer. But actually what really happens in this is that it's AI-based, AI-enabled. So the person gets feedback in terms of the keywords. The person gets feedback in terms of conversational analytics. The person gets feedback in terms of sentiment analytics, right? Which is what typically a trainer would do in a role play session, right? And this was not to cut down on the trainer count. It was, on the contrary, to build capacity, right? And I think it's worked beautifully well for us. So to answer your question, besides educating them and telling them and having dialogues, I think it's also important to let them, go through an experience which they feel that, yes, it's going to help us. So today, for example, for this particular tool that we have launched, not only that business, but the other business L&D heads and HR heads are also saying that, look, we also want to, deploy it. So now there's a pull factor instead of you trying to push something over there. Yeah.
Thank you. And this element of, it wasn't to replace trainers, it was to further enhance it. I think that's beautiful. So before we go into Q&A, building on that, few years ago, I was made aware that there is an organization in US which is into insurance. And what they did before AI buzz happened in the last 1-2 years, they revisited every single task done in the organization. They put the question that which of these tasks need to be done together in order to move the customer experience forward. And once they had those clusters, they then asked the second question, which of these can be done more efficiently using technology? And then they went and built bots around those tasks. And this cluster would then be put together along with the next question, what does a human being do to enhance the value add at this point in the process flow? Their JDs therefore became a combination of AI bots and the human being, that they would together perform as a role. Now, what does this mean for the end customers? From asking for an insurance policy to any claims to any Q&A, they never get to speak to any human being in the company at all. And they've had a very high uptake of clients coming in simply because of the seamless experience created. And I think one of the Ivy League B schools made a case study on this to teach how that is. And I was like, if we do this combination of how to enhance it further, That's what's potentially possible.
Just with your permission, Nikhil, just one thing. I was having a conversation with a very senior industry leader, a CEO of an organization. We're talking about leadership and how to build the pipeline. And something he said stayed with me is, Preeti, what I'm thinking is, like I'm sitting at the board and I have these 7-8 functional heads reporting into me, my function heads. I'm looking at AI, machine learning, technology as the 8th or the 9th member on my table, rather than it being something, an isolated concept, an alien concept that people are struggling with. So it's how different functions work together for the organization goal. I'm looking at that 8th member now to help us deliver the goal. And I think that stayed with me. He put it so beautifully.
Yes, and thank you for sharing
Just
that.
to add to what you're saying, Nikhil, I think, at Vodafone Idea, this combination has worked very well to actually free up time for our HR business partners. Because all our L1 and L2 level queries on processes, systems, policies are completely handled by a bot. Right? So I think the future hence in technologically forward organizations is going to be a combination of work which is going to be human driven as well as machine driven. But I think it's also a big onus on us to kind of understand which are those low level tasks, which are more efficiency focused and hence can be mechanized or digitalized. Which leaves then more time for HR partners or even leaders to then really focus on those human-centered moments of discovery and value between employees and themselves. And that's what I think we've been trying to do, and that has yielded very, very good results for us. And taken away all the headache that my HR BPs have in answering queries all the time. So I think, a combination is definitely the way forward.
Thank you. You were going to say
Yeah, sure. So, in fact, I would like to continue what Atul was saying about the resistance to change. So, of course, our natural reaction to change is always resistance, and we cannot really go away with it. So, what we are trying to do is, rather than focusing on how to address the resistance, our focus is on how to build a change-ready mindset in the employees. So, eventually, over a period of time, there is a possibility that employees will be more open to change, and what could be the best way to do it is to add it as one of the pillars in the performance appraisal. So what we have done is that until 2022, the employees were evaluated only on the results that they achieved that we typically do. Now we have added 2 more pillars to it. In addition to results, the second pillar that we have added is the demonstration of the values of the organization, which talks about we are not just looking at what you have achieved, but also how you have achieved it. Are you following the values of the organization while you are achieving your results? And the third pillar, which is more futuristic, is the change-ready pillar. So we have come up with 3 definitions: a change contributor, someone who willingly accepts the change and drives it. Then we have a change agent, someone who comes up with new ideas related to process improvement, cost saving, and implements it, drives those those change initiatives. And third is a change champion, someone who can really go out of scope and motivate other people to be the change agents, who is able to address the resistance that we are talking about. And we have linked all these 3 definitions with the different ratings in our performance appraisals. So there are 2 things which happen. First, we are able to identify who are the change contributors, agent, and champions in the organization and leverage them to spread the culture of change. And second, which is most alarming, is that we have a lot of people in the organization who are exceptional performers in terms of value skills or in terms of performance, but on change, they are hardly even contributing to the change. Now that becomes the responsibility of the manager to help these employees become the change contributors and eventually agents and champions. So it's a kind of forced approach that you have to build a change-ready mindset, and it's linked to the appraisal. It will be evaluated every 6 months. So not addressing the resistance directly, but saying that let's build a change-ready mindset, so eventually the resistance will be reduced. Thank you.
Are there any questions from the audience that the panel could take and answer for you? If you don't ask, then we have a task for you. So choose wisely.
We are between lunch and then.
Yes, so you have 3 minutes. So either the task or the questions. Task, okay. Please, go ahead.
So we talked a lot about the feedback mechanism, okay? That how we can get the feedback and just to improve the training methodology and procedure. My question is, how about taking feedback from the ultimate people who are impacted? So instead of taking feedback from the learners, if we can approach the end customers for whom the learners are working after getting the training, and if we can know from them that what difference training can bring in their performance. So does it work in this industry?
Can I take that?
Yes.
Yeah, so I think it's already happening. So, we have a lot of customer satisfaction surveys. We work on NPS, Net Promoter Score, right? And we've also gone ahead in certain cases where we've actually engaged with the customer and tried to understand that how was his or her experience, with our organization. Because now all of us are moving towards customer experience, right? And those give very, very important and, necessary nuggets from a learning point of view, that what is it that you need to incorporate. So we definitely do all these activities on a regular basis, and that gets plowed back into the curriculum that we are using. Whether it's hard skills or soft skills, we focus on both of them.
See, I work in a law firm, and even in our industry, we have these listening sessions with the clients, right? That happens sometime now, and we really invite all the clients to talk about how the services have been, the collaboration has been, and there are multiple questions, and just open feedback conversation from the client to us. And it's really important that all of this feedback plows back to not only HR, but to the partners who are involved in those transactions. So they do happen, just that one has to be mindful that you're not using or leveraging these feedback coming in against the person, but actually for the person and the development of the individual and the firm.
I'll just add one line, very short. So just addressing to your point as to how does the end customer benefit from this. I think there are 3 things that we do. One is when the training need has surfaced, the client is a part of the communication, that these employees who are working for you are undergoing this training. 2 is the manager of this employee is kind of connected back after 30 days of training saying, do you see this employee using this new skill or using the new ways of working? And the 3rd is, let's say roughly about 90 days, we connect back with the client and say, did you see this change? And that kind of brings a feedback saying, do we need to do something more? Are we lacking somewhere? Did we satisfy the customer, yes or no? And if yes, then we actually do a small event at our office, and clients do come and visit and either give away a certificate or a memento to the learner. But that's a regular practice. It's not an exception for us.
All right. Please be seated while I'm inviting Mr. Pratyush Sharma, CFO of Pragati Software Private Limited.